Call this meeting of Sylvania City Council for August 21st, 2023 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hanem?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Stout?
Here.
Mrs. Westfall?
Here.
All 7 members of City Council are present, therefore a quorum does exist. We invite you all to join us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening, led by Mr. Hanson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions to the agenda. I believe the clerk has distributed an ordinance which could be a part of the agenda item 6. Is that correct? The ordinance number is 73, 2023. Mr. Fry, any additions to the agenda?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Members of City Council? Hearing none. Mr. Sanford?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Miller?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Shaw?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Ms. Brining?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And we would like to remove agenda items 11, 12, and 13 from the agenda for review and possible change.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Westfall.
I'm just a little bit surprised there's not some kind of a discussion or tabling it during the meeting that should happen, or referring to a committee or something in the meeting?
We certainly can. It's been discussed with Ms. Dow and I think Mr. Fry, Mr. Richardson, but sure, why don't we talk about it when we get there and tell you what the issue is.
Okay,
Let's do that.
thank you.
With that, we'll show those items not as removed, but not for passage this evening.
Do we want to do a first reading, or do we just want to table them?
We can decide when we get there.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and this evening's agenda is approved. Item number 4 is approval of the council meeting minutes from our last meeting on July 17th. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move approval of the meeting minutes from the council meeting of July 17th, 2023 as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of the meeting minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and the July 17th meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 5 is introduction of our 3 new police officers. Chief Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As everyone knows, law enforcement has changed greatly over the years, and finding qualified candidates seems like it's always a challenge for a lot of people. We've been very blessed to have good quality candidates, and before us tonight, we have our last 3 officers that we've hired. First, we'll start with Officer Ryan Stagger. For those of you that have been around for a while, the name might sound familiar because Officer Stagger was with us before. He was originally hired in 2009 by Chief Saab. He worked with us until 2016. He left for a chance to go to Columbia Gas, which we all were kind of like, why? We're so great here.
We got some questions about their work this summer.
No. The timing of me leaving is pretty convenient, right?
You
Yeah.
were thinking.
Yeah.
He spent the last 7 years there, but he did have that drive for law enforcement, so he kept his certification up with the Lucas County Sheriff's Office. And when we posted for the opening, he contacted me and said, hey, I really miss you guys, want to come back and want to be part of the team and the family again. He tested and he's back before us tonight. So he's from Oregon, Ohio, and he has some solid connections and memories here with Sylvania, and he loved the community, so we're happy to have him back.
You know, if I were to come back, it definitely would have only been here, for sure. So I'm real happy to be
So
here.
now we have an officer in our department that can operate a backhoe.
That's right. That's right.
So, thank you, Maria.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Our next officer is Eric Regmanis. Born here in Sylvania, grew up in Toledo. He's a Start High School graduate, UT graduate. Went to Akron Police. He was there for 16 years. Things change in families, and his family's, they're all back here, so he wants to come back and be closer to home. As he was saying before, he had many opportunities. He reached out to many departments around the area, and we were lucky enough to have him choose us to come and spend time with us and finish out his career. He's been staying with us, and not gonna go anywhere. He was actually a school resource officer at a high school in Akron. Was his last assignment with them.
6 years,
6 years in high school.
Loved it.
Any questions for Officer Rick Manis?
I'm the one lucky to be here, so.
Okay. And then, thank you. And then our final officer tonight is Corey Wright. And Corey is a graduate of Northview High School. What year?
2019.
There you go. He was also one of our former police explorers. He went through our police explorer program. And kind of the irony is, Officer Stager was our advisor on the program. So they're back together.
Meant to be.
That's right.
So, and he did work for University of Toledo Police when we picked him up, and he's more than happy to be back
Absolutely.
where he spent his teen years with us and learning all about the department and wanted to come back, so.
I mean, when did you graduate from?
2019.
19? Oh, I feel so.
Mark, he graduated with Connor McCann, my son. So,
Yeah, 10 years ago.
My goodness.
So you will see them out and about. They're out with their field training officers right now, so they have about 16 weeks that we'll be putting them through, learning everything about the city, how we do things, before they're cut loose on their own.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, glad you're here.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
You guys are.
You don't have to stay and listen.
We're very pleased
It gets pretty
that
boring
you've
for me.
decided to come to Sylvania.
Take care, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6 is a report on the public hearing held this evening for special use permit 1, 2023. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At 7 o'clock, we brought to order a public hearing regarding SUP number 1, 2023. Basically, it's the construction of 2 outdoor classrooms, open-air outdoor classrooms at 5225 West Alexis Road. 3 individuals showed up for the public hearing. One gentleman was the architect for Boer Group, described that. We asked a couple of questions to him, and then 2 people from the public who owned a home on the south side of the property, which once they realized that this construction wasn't going to impact them at all, were not in opposition either. So with that, there was no other comments. There's nobody online available for comment either. So at 7:05, the public hearing was closed, and I ask for the distribution of the ordinance approving SUP 1-2023.
Okay, you do have in front of you ordinance 73, 2023, to approve this modification to the special use permit. Mr. Hanem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move adoption of ordinance number 73-2023. I will read by title only. Granting an amendment to the existing special use permit to construct outdoor classroom wood shelters for the Toledo Islamic Academy at 5225 West Alexis Road, Sylvania, Ohio, on the application of Liba Hulahana on the recommendation of the Municipal Planning Commission, and I move adoption of ordinance number 73-2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 73, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 73, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Agenda item 7, we're going to have an executive session about proposed litigation. You had all received a copy of a letter from a local attorney. Would like to go into executive session to discuss this with you. So I need a motion and a second to go into executive session, no, go into committee of the whole executive session.
I'll make that motion, Mr.
I'll
Mayor.
second.
It's moved and seconded. I need the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Hanem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Vote is 7-0. Two reporters are coming back in. We have returned from our executive session, a discussion of possible litigation. No action was taken by the city council in the executive session, and there is no report to be made of what was done in executive session. It was an update for city council. With that, we are ready to move on to agenda item 8, which is a change order for the Monroe Street Silica Drive upgrade and the Silica Drive bridge replacement. Mr. Aller is out of town this week. He's working on his water and sewer treatment plant recertifications, and so we're fortunate to have Joe Shaw with us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. The change order in front of you tonight is our first one on the Monroe and Silica project. It's a long project, but we've reached several milestones. Bridge is open, we've got a traffic signal that's working, we've changed directions in traffic, so a lot of key things that we've been looking to do, we've met. But in this one here, this change order here, this goes back to April 17th, and actually I think I was here in front of you talking about this, but this deals with Railroad Protective Services. If you recall, in that April meeting, about $50,000-ish was in the construction engineering agreement with Norfolk Southern for them to provide services during construction to watch the track, so to speak.
Which is their normal requirement.
That's their normal requirement. They went through some labor negotiations at the end of last year, November, and some wholehearted big changes in the railroad was done. And one of those was to take those protective services out of their construction engineering agreement and shift that burden to the city/contractor. So the April meeting, we amended our agreement with them, we took those services out, and now we're putting them back into where they belong with the way that the railroad is structured now, and that's back with us. So $50,486 of this is an assumed amount that we're anticipating for Railroad Protective Services. And then that shifts to Mosier as the services are done, they bill against that amount in our contract. A couple other small items that are in this too, a couple of deducts. We took out stormwater pollution prevention plan software purchase. That's pretty standard in every ODOT contract, but we don't need it here. And traffic signal related, how our traffic signal communicates through spread spectrum radio is an old technology. We've since upgraded those technologies and we're using more advanced systems than that, so we can take that out. We've added 2 power service quantities for the school zone flashers. We obviously have power service that we need to provide to our traffic signal. The plans were short of 2 power service quantities for the school zone flashers, which are currently AC, are currently solar power, and we're switching them to AC. So that's the summary. The total is $52,052.20 to increase the contract amount for Mosier Construction. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Shaw, a few questions. So just as a clarification, we reduced the amount of money we were going to pay to the railroad by $50,000, and I think we've passed that, correct?
Correct.
We're adding the $50,000 back in for Mosier, so increasing, so that's a push economically for us, net, right?
Correct.
And then there's these 3 modifications, is that, so my understanding is correct on that, in that regard, okay.
Yeah, 100% right.
So second question, timing of the improvements to the railroad track, I don't know where that's at in the chart, so to speak. When are we anticipating those changes to occur?
So to date, we've had no railroad protective services we've had to encumber. We've been able to do everything that we can without them being on site. That'll change, as you noticed, maybe this week if you pay attention on the west side of the track, south side of Monroe. There's a business that's down there. We've started to take out that retaining wall that's there. It's fairly tall.
It was a big excavation that took place today.
Yeah, big 8-9 feet tall. And so railroad protective services are needed on the railroad side of that. When we dig out where our foundations need to go, they'll need to have folks that are watching to making sure they're comfortable with how their track looks. We have a bunch of temporary shoring mechanisms in place to do all that work. And then the bigger piece will be on the north side. We're installing 2 new utility crossings. We're having a new water line that crosses the railroad tracks, as well as an electrical conduit. Those need watched by the railroad while we do that work too. Those are all coming up here very, very soon. We're actually starting them all now. Utility crossings are probably about a month.
Okay. So we may still have another adjustment for this,
Well, I hope that,
these works, and to our benefit.
yeah, I hope that the 50 that's in here, we more than cover that with what's needed. I
Okay.
suspect we will, but it's there in case we need it.
Understood. Thank you.
I would like to reiterate, as you all know, the north side of the Monroe Street heading west is now closed, but the south side heading east, traffic opened on time back in early August, and then the bridge opened on Silica Drive August 14th, and the schools opened today, and things are working out pretty well. I was very pleased to see the traffic signal get put back in there on a timely basis. So I am pleased with Mosier Construction getting this work done on time. We're fortunate to have a contractor that is holding the schedule. This is a very important project for us, and they're meeting the schedule. Some of you may have also gotten concerns about speeding on Erie Street and on Maplewood. Chief Miller is here, but she reported to me the extra work that's being done there and the citations that are being issued. We think we've got a handle on that, but you can't account for the occasional person that's late for work and goes through there fast. But I have not been receiving complaints about that for the last several weeks. Okay. We do have in your council packets, item 8B, ordinance 67, 2023 to enact this change. If there's no questions, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 67, 2023, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to approve change order number 1 to the city's agreement with Moser Construction for the Monroe Street and Silica Drive intersection improvement and Silica Drive bridge replacement project to reflect the cost of railroad protective services, increasing the contract amount by $52,052.20, appropriating funds therefore, and I would move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 67, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 67, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 9. This has to do with the resurfacing project in Tantalon Flats 1 and 2. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Catalon Plat 1 and 2, for those that aren't familiar geographically with where that is, that's between Centennial Farms and Highland Elementary, a subdivision that sits right in between the two. This is our last resurfacing effort back in that area. We did a very small section of that a couple years ago. This is the final piece of that. Work's been completed by Bowers Asphalt, and we've resolved all of the final quantities, and a change order is necessary to adjust our price. This one's an increase of about $16,000 to our original contract amount. Any roadway resurfacing project we do, we put in what's called pavement repair. So after you take the mill surface off, you take a look at what's underneath and see what it looks like. Is it in good shape? Is it in not so good shape? We call that pavement repair. In this particular instance, we had a good chunk in there for pavement repair and didn't need any of it. It was in very good shape. However, we had some sections of curb, 543 feet of it, that was not in very good shape that we wanted to add to the contract. So we used about $14,700 in savings on pavement repairs and applied that towards necessary curb repairs that were needed in the area. So that's the net. So $16,000 is $16,171.46 is the net increase after we've resolved all of our final quantities. So increasing the contract amount by that amount and requesting approval.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw? If not, you do have in your council packets, item 9B, ordinance number 68, 2023. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce ordinance number 68, 2023 by title only. authorizing the mayor and director of finance to approve change order number 1, final, to this city's agreement with Bowers Asphalt and Paving, Inc. for the Tantalon Plat 1 and 2 resurfacing projects to reflect the final installed quantities, increasing the contract amount by $16,171.46, appropriating funds therefore, and I move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 68, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 68, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you, Joe. We're now up to agenda item 10. This is for council to take action necessary for the approving the banner application of Lord's University. This came in late. We had notified the university that we thought they'd want it and we needed it in, but it did not get in time. They asked if they could put it up early because their kids are back. We thought that that would be all right based on precedent that city council has allowed this banner in the past. But you still need to take the action to do this. That is in your council packet as ordinance 69, 2023. If there's not any questions, Mr. Hanem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank the administration for their good judgment on this and moving forward with
If it had been a new banner, we would never have done it.
But anyway, I move adoption of ordinance number 69-2023, and I will read by title only, ratifying the action of the administration in approving the banner application of Lord's University, and I move adoption of ordinance number 69-2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 69, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 69, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Now we'll go to page 2 of our agenda. We're up to agenda items 11, 12, and 13. The administration prepared these ordinances and put them on the agenda so that we could do what was necessary for a joint driveway as easement agreement, a patio easement agreement along Main Street, and then a modification to the developmental agreement between the city and the owners of Inside the Five. Over this afternoon, I saw emails come through from Lindsay with concerns addressed by the Heritage Museum about how close this was to their museum building, which has been struck apparently several times.
Yeah.
So why don't you take over there?
Sure. I received this at the same time that you guys did, so Heritage Sylvania did not have a chance to review this plan prior to the easement being proposed to council. As soon as I saw it, which was on Sunday, I promptly sent it to our director and the president of our board to discuss, to see if there were any issues that we could foresee. This has been talked about over the last couple of years now, and over that time we've expressed some concern. And when we saw that this plan continued to show it directly against the ramp on the museum, or next to the museum, we asked for a chance to discuss with the administration some concerns we have about the safety for the students that use that ramp regularly throughout the year, as well as for the preservation of the building. I'm happy to share more information with you guys now, but what I requested was to delay that first ordinance for the joint driveway access for one meeting to allow for Heritage Sylvania a chance to discuss with the administration some changes to address those concerns.
And I see that you have set that meeting with the administration for next Tuesday at 1:30.
Yes,
I'm not sure where the meeting's taking place.
at the museum, so that we can
Museum,
point
that
and
makes
see
sense.
things directly and show evidence of why we have concerns with it. And
We appreciate
Past
Mr.
issues.
Shaw's efforts to get you a better drawing and visual of what was going on there, and they added a curve, which they hoped would resolve the issue, but people jump curbs.
yes,
So that's, and there's no curb there now. So that's the issue. As for delaying the project, Inside the Five has struggled with Lucas County Building and Plan Inspection to get their permits. They do have that. They are probably working with their contractor to start the job. They were going to start it here by September 30th. Let's see how this negotiation goes, and we'll see whether we have to involve Inside the Five to rework this, and we'll be back to you at the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to add one comment, in that, I'm not sure the exact date, I did have a conversation with Director Andy Erbscorn. She asked me specifically about this and mentioned the concern about backing into the museum property, being that the area, as everybody knows, has turned into kind of a parking lot. And I shared that with the new plan that our staff put together with helping find the property lines and such, that it was gonna return to being a driveway as it once was. And there would not be people in parking spots that would be backing into the building. And I just wanted everyone to know that that was communicated. I did have that conversation with Andy some time ago.
I'm happy to quickly say, give the quick recollection of the two main concerns so that everyone here is aware of them, if you'd like. It wouldn't take me very long, if that's all right, if you guys are. So the first one is the safety of the students. So there are over 3,000 young students that visit campus every year and use that ramp to access the museum in order to keep them away from the heavier traffic on Main Street. And so student programming regularly overlaps with some of the busy times at Inside the Five with the brewery, and minimum separation between potentially impaired drivers and a vulnerable population is a risky combination. So the current setup is already kind of challenging because the driveway is directly aligned with that ramp. And we had hoped that with this new plan that there would be a little more separation there. But since in this new one it is a driveway, and in a driveway there would no longer be people backing up, it is still going to go from 2 driveways to 1 driveway, which means any traffic that's going by there has to go next to the museum at that point. But there will be fewer parking spaces, so that could also help with traffic. So the first concern, though, is just safety for the students. And then the second one is preservation of the historical building. It's already been run into about half a dozen times, and most recently it was run into strong enough that the concrete stairs at the front of the building had to be repaired, $7,000 worth of repair. And it's one of those, even though it'll be a driveway, generally it's good practice to have a little bit of a gap between active driveways and structural and buildings in general. So I have a couple proposals of ways that we might be able to fix it up quickly without having to change something, but we just needed the chance to have the conversation.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know you mentioned that we're hoping to get this resolved without having to have too many conversations with Inside the Five, but they will, of course, know that this didn't go through. Will somebody be in touch with them to kind of help them understand what's going on, and that we're actually looking at passing at the next meeting, that this has been put on hold? I feel like we've all been anxiously waiting for this day, so now this day is finally here, and there's another little bump. So will we at least let them know what
I will
the
for
steps
sure
are
reach out to their,
quickly?
I can reach out to their attorney, and Bill can reach out.
Bill can reach out to Katie and
Brandon.
let's talk about it. Yep.
We just
Are
haven't
there-
had a chance to have
Yeah,
that
I
conversation.
understand.
So they are not aware of this at this time?
They are not.
So,
They,
I'm
they
sorry.
believed it was gonna be passed this evening.
So procedurally, will the Heritage Board need to vote on an approval on, or how does this all, I guess, work?
I think that we have a meeting planned for Tuesday with me and Joe, possibly Kevin as well, and with Andy. We might bring Tom in, who's the board president, and I already have some quick things that we might be able to add into the ordinance. It's just, we need to have that conversation first. And so it could be resolved at that meeting and be done. There is
Any
no,
proposed improvements, we need to know what they are.
Yeah.
Let Joe or Kevin know what they are, maybe a little in advance.
Yeah.
If there's any drawing that needs to be done with it.
so it could be done as soon as Tuesday.
The city owns the property. No, it isn't to be approved by them, but They are our historic village, and they've expressed a concern, so we're listening.
I get that. I'm just a little, I'd say I'm a little concerned maybe with showing, the city now causing a delay in this process as it's been, you know, we've been sitting there staring at the empty lot for years now, and I think we're all anxious to see it going, and I just don't know how that's going to look from the property owner's standpoint of now the city's throwing in a delay.
We do have two issues that this doesn't affect at all. That's the development agreement to adjust the dates, the patio easement along Main Street, which does not affect this. And Lindsay, I don't know what your proposed improvements are, but it might be possible, law director's correct me, but it might be possible to go ahead and approve these and then have an amendment to the easement, to the driveway, shared driveway at the next council meeting. That would resolve the issue that you're bringing up, Patrick.
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned about extending the time when we don't know what we're doing.
Right, that's the
So
concern.
I mean, we can do the patio easement, but I would wanna know, you know, if, depending on what changes we're gonna,
Right.
first of all, I share your concerns that this just came up. I mean, this is the status quo thing. This is the way it is, and it's the way it has been, and there's certainly been plenty of opportunity for the Historic Village to express some concern about
I
this.
mean, it's the status quo and it's the way it's been.
I mean, there's a driveway there now with the same curb.
Yeah, but it wasn't always a big parking lot in which so many people would drive
Okay,
by.
well, I beg to differ with you, but that's fine. The point is, I would love to reinforce with inside the five how positive this council is about this development, and we're gonna keep this moving and not let this 11th hour issue get in the way of this development.
Haven't we passed a conditional? Can't we do a conditional on that?
Conditional on what, Brian?
On the one that we're,
Joint driveway.
the joint driveway, can't we do?
But we don't know what the conditions are.
Yeah, because the
That's the
Tuesday meeting
problem.
could
Right.
produce, they could say the
But it's-
driveway needs to move 12 feet that way, and now the whole plan is,
But it's the city's property, it's not the museum's. It's not the board.
Then it would just come back to you in this form.
Exactly, so that's why I'm saying, why can't we, because we're going to do that,
so then we're saying that,
we will affect repairs
yeah, because it,
commensurate to the safety need.
so you're saying that based on the Tuesday meeting, we may or may not follow the ask of that meeting. Is that kind of what we're getting at then? Because if that meeting produces a result that says, well, the driveway needs to move, something drastic where the whole plan needs to get moved around, we
That's
wouldn't.
not what we're gonna propose. I've recommended maybe some bollards along where that ramp is, or maybe like a low concrete wall. It's just a 6-inch curb is not going to stop a car from having their front or back end from causing potential damage.
So you're not proposing the moving of the
No,
driveway?
we're not trying to slow down. We're very supportive of the project. We've had brought
Makes
this
me feel
up
better.
previously. It's one
Again,
of
he's
those.
talking about property lines, not structure. So they're not proposing to move the property line.
Well, I'm talking about where the
Yeah,
physical location
for
of
where
the
the location is,
driveway,
yes,
yeah.
the structural location.
So let me make sure I understand. The property that we're talking about here as it sits, we own that, the city, I should say, the city owns that property currently.
Those 5 feet, yep.
If we pass this, but come back and say, okay, to your point, Lindsay, that we come back and say, okay, we're gonna put bollards in, we're gonna put a small wall in, whatever that situation is, that's on the city economically, or Heritage Sylvania, which eventually becomes the city, right? Am I missing something there?
We could just amend that tonight.
So then I don't understand why this can't pass.
Yes.
I just discussed that with the law director, Lindsay. With that information, we can modify this first ordinance and change the agreement to say, and install safety bollards or other barricades for the protection of the historic
That's
museum.
what I'm talking about.
And that way, if we modify it, we can go ahead and do that tonight.
Don't we want, you sure that's okay with our tenant? But we haven't even told them this is going on.
But we're talking about maybe the modification to be on the city property, not on
Not
theirs.
on-
Look, we have a meeting on the 5th. We have 2 weeks. Let's have this meeting on Tuesday, and then let's move forward. But let's tell them we're gonna move on this.
Yeah.
I'd go back to at minimum, can we move forward with 12 and 13?
Yes.
I don't see why we couldn't.
Just to, Mr. Mayor, maybe just to add, just a comment on, not to ever slight any of the concerns that the Historic Village does a great job. I worked with Inside the Five every step of the way, from buying the property to the duplexes to the expansion, whatever. At this point in time, I would not, and because I've been the point person, in hindsight, I probably could have done a better job with some of this, with this development with the duplex. I would not want to go back to them and say, you have to change your plan, your site plan, cost them more money, cost them more time. That is not the message that I think the city wants to give to them. Someone who has invested over $1 million, probably more than closer to $2 million in our downtown. That's where my concern is.
That's sort of the basis of mine as well.
Me too.
I would love to see all three get passed, and if there's an amendment, I definitely want it to be safe 100%. Like if there needs to be, obviously if the building got hit, then something, yeah, sure. All for that. I just would love to see that balanced with echoing Bill's concerns.
I can say, because we discussed this directly earlier today, was that Heritage Sylvania does not want to slow this down, but we felt like we were obligated to restate these concerns. But the organization is very excited for this plan and very appreciative of the shared parking lot as well as the access to the carriage house. It is a joint access agreement. It benefits both sides, and we would like to continue to move it. And based on my discussions with them earlier, I would be comfortable if we use some sort of language such as some sort of safety barrier and maybe signage to help prevent or to help inform students that that's the end of the campus, or some sort of combination of the two. I would be comfortable moving that forward.
Well, adopting this ordinance doesn't prevent us from doing any of that.
Okay.
Adopting it as is.
And I would think the Tuesday meeting would still go on and figure out what we can do to make it safe and all that.
Great.
Unless I'm missing something, that's the way I would read it.
You all right with that, Mr. Sanford?
Yes.
I do prefer to move it ahead. I think we need to modify what we're passing here, though, the ordinance. I don't know if I can get into the agreement or the site plan, but just as a part of the ordinance,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
May I make a suggestion?
please.
If we're gonna make a modification, let's let Ms. Brining make those modifications while we address the other items in the agenda, and we skip this while she has the opportunity to make those on the fly. Maybe that's too much pressure, Ms. Brining, but
I appreciate the extra time.
just trying to bring you an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate it, thank you. I think I've got it.
Section 1.
At the end of section 1, we can
That's
just
right.
put
That's where I was
subject,
looking.
yeah.
What are you thinking about doing here?
Just at the end of section 1,
Page 3 of the ordinance, at the
Yeah.
top where it says section 1.
I'm not gonna touch the easement at all. It doesn't need to be in there. But just in section 1, we can say, subject to safety barriers.
Or safety measures, because I don't know if it's just the barrier, it might be like a sign, a little bit of signage or something too.
Or answer.
Safety
Okay,
improvements
haven't
is
we
right.
negotiated this with their lawyers? Haven't their lawyers been involved in this?
The easement, not the safety stuff. That's just,
Well, that's my
that's from
point.
Heritage,
I-
yeah. that will just be on the city property. So we can,
Oh, wait, maybe
Yeah.
I'm not following you.
Safety improvements and signage.
Yeah.
Safety improvements and signage.
Yeah, safety improvements and signage. would
Yep.
be-
subject to safety and improvements and signage.
That would
And
cover our
are
concerns.
we sure there's nothing else that's gonna come out of that meeting? I mean, if we're making revisions in
If
advance of the
there
meeting
is,
on Tuesday.
it will have to come back and you'll have to approve those amendments, and that can be done at the September 5th meeting.
Well,
If,
the only other thing that might happen in the meeting is, this could be solved by, we could move the ramp, which is part of the master plan, for Heritage Sylvania. We just don't have funds to do it by the time construction starts. So we're trying to find a way to have, a temporary, safety measures during construction as well as in the meantime while we fundraise or be able to find the funds. So I don't think, it'll still match the same safety improvements and signage description as what's going in there. It just might not be a bollard, it might be something else.
Okay, on page 3 of the ordinance, under section 1, at the end of section 1, law director is recommending after the word easement at the end, comma, subject to safety and signage to be, safety improvements and signage to be approved by the Director of Public Service. All right.
I appreciate your time helping sort this through. I was a bit surprised when I saw it on Sunday and kind of rushed to have these conversations to try to make sure things could keep moving.
All right, let's see if we can't move ahead with this thing. Ordinance 70, 2023 is agenda item 11, and it is the joint driveway access agreement to be modified with those words, and I'll read it another time. At the end of section 1 on page 3, add the comma, subject to safety improvements and signage to be approved by the Director of Public Service. Deputy Director is here. Are you okay with that, Joe?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So we're not signing this tonight,
All right.
even though.
That means that I'll need this ordinance introduced as amended. Lindsay, I have you down to do this one because it is building and grounds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce the amended ordinance number 70-2023 and read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a joint driveway access easement with First Brookside LLC on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio. I move for passage of ordinance, as an emergency measure, excuse me. I move for passage of ordinance, or amended ordinance number 70-2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of amended ordinance number 70, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and amended ordinance 70, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. All right. Let's move on to agenda item 12, which is the patio easement. Joe, can you describe this for city council? This is right along the sidewalk on Main Street.
Sure, they are looking to expand the patio footprint based on the site plans that are in the packet.
There's a drawing on the back of the packet.
They have their existing patio, they want to keep it, they want to add some space to that, so the modification to the patio easement is to encompass that expansion.
It lengthens the existing patio, it does not bring it out farther towards Main Street.
That's correct, and we're in coordination with them with our downtown transportation improvement project too. We're looking at sidewalks and curves through that area to see how all that will come together. We're not quite all the way there, but we feel the footprint that they're proposing for the patio easement wouldn't hinder what we want to do.
All right, Mr. Richardson, this is an easement onto streets.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 71, 2023, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a patio easement agreement with First Brookside LLC on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio. I move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 71, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 71, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Now to the third of these, proposed ordinance 72, agenda item 13. This is to amend the redevelopment agreement. And Mrs. Brining, I think you need to share again what those date changes are.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original development agreement that was approved back in September required construction to commence on or before June 30th, 2023. Obviously, that did not occur. So the proposed and completion to occur on or before June 1st, 2025. So the amended development agreement requires construction to begin on or before September 30th, 2023, and the completion date is August 1st, 2025. That is the only modification to the development agreement, was just to change those two dates.
And again, the change for the dates are, they struggled for approval with Lucas County Plan Inspection, and I think that they do have their permits to proceed. They have the city zoning permit to proceed, and let's change these dates so that they are up to date. Mr. Fry, I have you reading this one.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 72, 2023, and read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a first amendment to the amended and restated development agreement with First Brookside LLC on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio. I move passage of ordinance number 72, 2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 72, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 72, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you all. I look forward to this project moving ahead. It'll be a great improvement for our downtown. Like you, I've been disappointed that it's turned into a stone parking lot all this time, but patience, I think, is going to pay off. The new drawings look good, and I'm looking forward to the improvements. Okay. That means we're ready to go on to agenda item 14. Mr. Shaw, you're back on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a sanitary sewer project that encompasses two areas of our town very close to each other. We have large diameter sanitary sewer lining project. We're up to phase 3 on this. We've previously done 1 and 2. And then South Main Street sanitary sewer rehabilitation. We have not done any work on this stretch, so I'll describe both projects that we're going to sell together as one. So the large diameter phase 3, we've done work downstream of our Monroe Street pumping station. All of that work is complete downstream. Excellent. Some of the best work we've done since Mr. Aller and I have been, here. Phase 3 will be no different. This is another grouping of level 5s that we call them that are deteriorated. That's the highest rating of deterioration you can usually get in a rating system. So this last grouping here will knock just about all of our level 5s out. In this particular section, this is in our south interceptor. So 10 Mile Creek, south side of the creek, and the left, east, and west are Main Street and Haroon Road. So this entire segment is our large diameter phase 3. So this is, again, we're rehabilitating 30-inch and 36-inch sanitary sewer along the creek. Manholes will be lined as well with that. About 2,100 feet total within that stretch. Again, addressing all of our level 5s through there. One additional piece that was added onto this project is there's a creek crossing for Somo Flats that goes underneath 10 Mile Creek and ties into this interceptor. It's a 12-inch from the 1950s. It's not in very good shape either. It's something that's been on our radar for a long time, but we wanted to find a project that we could group this together and get better pricing with, and this is the perfect candidate to do that. So we'll be taking care of that with this project too. So that's the large diameter piece of it. The South Main Street piece is going to be a little more invasive and something we haven't done a whole lot of here, at least in my time. So the main trunk sewer that goes down the center of Main Street is fairly deep. It's about 20-25 feet deep. Open trench replacing that sewer that's 110 years old would be extremely invasive through that section of town. So the good news is it's a lining candidate, and that's what we intend to do with it too. Just like we're doing with large diameter, we can rehabilitate that 12-inch the exact same way and line it down the center. The key is when we did our video inspection of this, the sanitary laterals are in really bad shape. Those are, again, 110-year-old laterals that service each property. So we are going to rehabilitate those with those projects too. We can do it by two different approaches. Same way we do the main line, we can line the laterals. We can dig them up in the property at the right-of-way line, and we can lateral line them to the main. Or some of them are so bad that we just simply can't, and we have to dig and replace. So ballpark numbers, I would say 80-85% of this is a lining project for the laterals. About 15% remain that have to be open cut. So we will be doing that. So the timing on this is important. As you guys know, we're reconstructing Main Street next year in 2024. We're taking out everything in between the curves with that. So this project comes first. We take care of the sewer system. We take care of the laterals, any open digging, any curb repair, anything that we've got to do in the pavement to dig it up to do this project, we're going to do it first. We come back with the roadway reconstruction project in June, and then we button everything back up, and we get a nice finished product. So that's the project here for both large diameter and South Main.
And this is a project you've heard about in the past when we applied for the Ohio Public Works Commission funding, which we were successful to receive, and also the Ohio Water Development Authority loan as well. So you've heard about these projects. This is just an authorization to go out to bid. That's all we're asking for tonight. There's no questions. Mr. McCann, we need an authorization to go out to bid.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to authorize the city to advertise for bids for these projects. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We're up to agenda item 15. We have a resolution here to reappoint William Sanford to our JED board for a new term of 4 years. Mr. Sanford has served on that board since its inception. It has been successful, and there are definite possibilities of expanding the JED areas and JED projects between us and the Sylvania Township. We are working cooperatively to do that. I don't know if you want to talk about those projects. One is on Central Avenue.
I think what I'd like to do, Mayor, and give a report that I can include in the, probably the next council packet.
Okay.
Let's give more of the detail. The one JED that's in place, that's the Oak Leaf on Holland, Sylvania. Financially, it is doing better than what we anticipated. So, and we're in the third year of that JED. There's another property, as the mayor mentioned, on Central Avenue that where the Giant Eagle was located, that's being converted to a storage facility, but that whole complex, there's new lots being developed, and that has potential, and there's some other ones that we're looking at. So that has definitely been it's an offshoot of our annexation agreement, and the program's working very, very well.
We worked very hard to get this JED agreement a few years ago, and it is being successful. And Bill is part of the reason it's being successful, because he works well with the township administrator.
I have to say the brains of the operation is Oliver Turner. Whoever made the recommendation to hire Oliver, he's an excellent guy to work with. I work a lot with him. I know Kevin Aller has to work a lot with him too, and he is just great to work with.
All right, so we do have Resolution 8, 2023 to do this. Mrs. Westfall, I'm asking you to read this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce resolution number 8-2023. All members of council having received copies in advance, I'll read by title only. Reappointing William D. Sanford to the Sylvania JED 1 Board of Directors for a term of 4 years. I move passage of resolution number 8-2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 8, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and resolution 8, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you and congratulations, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on to agenda item 16, we have 3 additional vehicles which are listed in the memo from Mr. Aller to put onto Gov Deals. My discussions with Mr. Aller is that he continues to be amazed what some of these old vehicles are worth. And if you want to see some of them, they're parked along River Crossings Drive out in front of the maintenance garage. You can see those as they take the city's stickers and identification things off of them. Mr. Hanson, I'd like you to authorize this. Pardon? It's just a motion, Mr. Hanson, but there's one for Parks, and we haven't made you work yet tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to list the 3 vehicles as listed on the memo and the VIN numbers associated with them to post on the Gov Deals website.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to authorize the listing of these 3 vehicles on Gov Deals. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're up to agenda item 17, report of the Zoning and Annexation Committee meeting held this evening. Mr. Hanem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Annexation Zoning Committee meeting did meet at 6:15 this evening. Present were members of the committee, Mr. Hanson, Ms. Dow, Mrs. Westfall, and yours truly. All other presents included Mark Fry and Patrick Richardson, Brian McCann, Leslie Brining, Mayor Stow, Bill Stanford. Anyway, we had a discussion of the recent meeting with Michelle Johnson between, that I participated in along with Leslie, Kevin Aller, and Bill Stanford to review the Smith Group proposal to develop, to modify and develop a City of Sylvania downtown zoning plan. There was some belief that the current code and architectural review process was sufficient, but the Smith Group proposal does provide an opportunity for a comprehensive review and update of our downtown code. The consensus among council members present was that proceeding with the Smith Group proposal will better position the city to promote the downtown plan and respond to development interest in our downtown going forward. The committee adopted a motion to direct the law director to prepare legislation to accept the Smith Group proposal. And I didn't mark down the meeting time adjourned. It was around
6:45.
6:45? 6:45. And that's my report.
We might want a motion for this administration to prepare an ordinance to approve this contract.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we direct the administration to prepare proposed legislation to accept the Smith Group December 2022 proposal.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to prepare legislation to hire the Smith Group. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll have that ready for you on September the 5th. Are there any further committee reports or referrals to make at this time? Hearing none, there are only 2 informational items. I've already referred to the Board of Architectural Review meeting minutes. There were no items that came in front of the Plan Commission this month. So I think we're up to speed.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hanson.
I noticed the architectural review notes, Bell Tire will be replacing a pole sign with a monument sign.
That is correct. They originally wanted to put in a new pole sign, but when advised that that would have to come down in 2026, they went with a monument sign.
Great, good news. Thank you.
This is replacing the Tire Man up there next to Major Magic's.
Yes.
All right, if there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and this council stands adjourned until Tuesday, September the 5th, 2023, 15 days from now at 7:30 PM. Thank you all.